welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Karen. It's good to see you again after haven't seen you for a while. We haven't been able to get anywhere or go anywhere, have we?
I know it's been a long, long time. I know, but you're never far from my mind. Don't worry about that.
Nah, thanks for that. Thanks. I wish more women said that, but that's another story.
Oh, what are you talking about, Dan? You're a heartthrob.
Yeah. In my own house with no one around, I am. Yeah, but nah, been a bit quiet on that front.
Yeah, well, you deserve the best. It's a pity, but you're an absolute bloody legend in my mind. You're just you're unbelievable. You're such a good bloke. And I know you don't see it. That's the shame, isn't it? That we usually don't see what other people see in us. But you're just such a legend. You've just pushed through so many challenges, and I know that we're going to talk about some of your battles. And somehow you just keep going, and you just keep shining through for people. And I think that we need to appreciate more how difficult that is at times. And that people that have got mental health challenges, as I said in the intro with you, there's the myth that sometimes we can't achieve what we think we can achieve because those challenges are in the way. But you are evidence that we can push through, and we can make a difference. And there are many people in the world that well, in particular in Australia, because you're all about Aussie rules, but who just put you on such a pedestal for the information you put out there and give them about the game. And so I think you're a bloody legend.
Yeah, thanks for that. That's a bit too kind, but no, I appreciate it, and you know how much I love what you do. If we had more go-getters like you out there, I think the world would be a much better place.
Yeah, the world would be exhausted, I can tell you.
I can tell you, yeah, they would be. Yeah. They'd need a lockdown to get over you, but it'd be worth it.
I love it. Oh, geez. So you've got 12 books. You've written 12 books in 6 years. So that in itself is phenomenal, right? I don't know, that is so prolific. Like, I don't even know how the hell you did that, but you did it. You've managed to do it, and you got more on the way. But as a child, were you like lost in the world of writing? Is it something that's always been there?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I was lost in the world of reading and lost in the world of just being obsessed with sport history in general, just fascinated by it, And I read far more than any of my friends or family or anyone would have been reading. That was sort of my special downtime, was to be in my room with another footy history book or sport history book in front of me, and I soaked up anything that was on TV of history related, and lived for my footy. And and it just, but I didn't know. I knew pretty early that there was just something different about how I viewed the world and what I was sort of hoping to do in life. But at the same time, I had absolutely no idea what that was. And I felt it would be in sport or in this sort of field. But I there was no planning for it. There was no idea of how do you actually make that happen. There was none of that. I just somehow got my way through school. Certainly nothing exceptional there. I just, probably barely passed. But I tried. It didn't work for me, I guess, in terms of really excelling that way. I was probably more into the friends and kicking the footy at lunchtime and that sort of thing. But so it wasn't planned. I probably, English was one of my favourite classes, and the odd time when you would have to write something, I did enjoy that. But again, there was nothing special about what I did or planning for that. And I finished school. There was no plan of uni. I was just happy to have passed. And, I had various jobs over the next few years, but nothing stuck for too long. Still had this massive passion for sport and history. And eventually it just got to a point. I met one of the greats of Australian rules, Dick Reynolds, when I was 15. Just bumped into him in the middle of Melbourne, and he was shocked that this kid recognised who he was. He was in his 70s then, and I was shocked that he thought that. Everyone should have known who he was. So that sort of sparked me a bit of interest in wanting to learn more about Dick's story and his life. And I'd always look for, I live in bookshops, and I'd always look for a Reynolds biography, and there never was one. So in another period where nothing much was happening work-wise and I just wasn't inspired in what I was doing, I eventually just came up with the idea that I'd try and write the story that needs to be told. So again, I undertook that not having any idea what that meant, what it entailed, had no specific skills or anything, and it just grew from there. People started to open doors for me that I'd knocked on that they didn't have to. They could have shut the doors for me and I might not have got anywhere. But each time I approached someone about what I was doing or where I needed help, everyone was fantastic at helping me. And it just grew from there. It's amazing what happened once it just clicked inside me that this is what I was meant to do.
Mm. Wow. Wow, just from meeting one legend. And it's funny that, isn't it? Because, I think that if you're really into footy, you're going to recognize them. It's amazing that he would think that you wouldn't. But I suppose too, I guess back then you only saw them on tally, and it was only on the World of Sport and, stuff like that. It wasn't really, like now before every game, there's big highlights of each person and, their faces are really there on the screen. But back then it was just, they were just running around a field. And if they weren't on World of Sport or something like that, you really didn't see a lot of their faces. And it's funny you say there that you looked for the book and it wasn't there. And I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to that they've actually, what they've gotten off the bench to do was something that they couldn't find themselves, so they got off to do it. I think that's fantastic. So you've written the first book about Dick Reynolds, and like, how did you find a publisher? Did that just sort of, how did that happen? And this wasn't that long ago either. This is only 6 years ago. So
2014. So I started the book in 2010 and just fitted it around life. Mate, I live in Leongatha in country Victoria, so there's lots of trips to Melbourne for interviews, and it was, I didn't have any money in the bank, so each time I got a few dollars in the bank, it was straight in the car and down to the city for another interview. And so I did it pretty hard early on, but finally got it finished in 2014. And I was lucky. When I was researching the book, I interviewed a guy who used to play in the 40s, and his daughter was there, and she said, you could turn this into a degree, what you're doing. And me being the barely educated human that I am, I had no idea what she was talking about, but I followed her advice eventually, and I went and saw a couple of professors at Vic Uni in Footscray, and they got me straight into a master's degree. So that taught me how to, well, it certainly helped me learn how to write. And my thesis was on Dick, and then the book expanded on that. So I was lucky that I'd started to craft the skills through doing that. And then, so by the time I had written quite enough chapters, I approached the best footy publisher in going around, Jeff Slattery, and I was very fortunate that and it helped that I was obviously writing about one of the legends of the game. So the fact that Dick Reynolds' story was there for him, I think he saw that it was a worthwhile project. So I was very lucky that I didn't have to scratch and beg probably to get that first publishing deal. I know some people have some horror stories of a million rejections, so I was very lucky in that sense. And fortunately, since then, we've had a really good working relationship. So that's where I've come to him with some of my book ideas, and he's come to me and said, would you like to write this? So it's been a very good partnership in that way. So I was very lucky, probably picked the right subject to start with.
Yeah, oh, that's fantastic. It's so after Dick, like, that comes out and you've got that out on the out for the world to buy, and that what was it that, why didn't you stop? Why did you just, a lot of people will write one book and think, yeah, I've done that, and that was great, now I might move on to something else, and now I've got the bug. But you didn't, and you haven't. You just kept in the whole field of sports, and most of it Australian rules football. How do you decide, like, what goes through your head when you think, what's the next thing I'm going to write about?
Yeah, I found when I was in late high school, and this probably didn't help my final results at school, but I started to get a lot of mental health issues in about probably year 11-ish. And so that really influenced or affected a lot of my post-school life for the first, 10 years or eight or 9 years. It really, it it hindered my ability to keep jobs and keep relationships and all those important things in life, and therefore save money and all those things. So I just never found one thing that I struggled with, I guess, was I hadn't found what I felt my purpose was, or what was going to get me out of bed each day. So it was a battle, you know, and it was really hard, and some really flat times. So when I was doing that book, that's without me realizing it, I started to become really enthusiastic about doing it in a way that I hadn't been for other things I'd done in the past. And it become a bit like going for a run, and then, you know, you get a bit self-motivated to try and maybe beat that run the next day, and your body starts to tell you, hang on, we should be going for another run today, don't sit on the couch. And it's a bit like that, where it becomes a bit infectious when you do find what you love doing, because it doesn't feel like work. Even if you are working 10-hour days, it doesn't feel like you're actually working as such, because you're just so enthralled in what you're doing. And I think that's why when that first one was finished, I was instantly onto what can I do next, what other story, because I'd realised I could achieve it, which was a real personal sort of sense of pride to know that, hey, you've accomplished something here that is pretty special. And so that was a positive feeling. And then also just knowing in myself that this is why I love getting out of bed, you know, otherwise I'm probably not feeling great about myself or great to be around, and I'm pretty flat. But this is making me feel really, I just found what it was that I love to do. So it from then on, I've got a million ideas in my head every day almost about what's the next story, and that's why I've been able to write a few in short time, because I do have a couple on the go at once sometimes. Sometimes I've had 3 on the go at once, and it doesn't feel like a daunting prospect. It's just happening because I'm just enthralled in the whole process. So that's why it's become a flow-on effect from there.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. I was thinking just as you were saying that, you know, you're saying that you're interested and you're right into it, you're immersed in it, you know, but it doesn't feel like work. And yet earlier you said that, you know, school was such a battle, you know, that you just sort of made your way through. And isn't it amazing though that, you know, and there's so many opinions about school, so many opinions about education, and it's kind of like that meme that is, you can't expect a fish to climb a tree, you know, and education is not sort of fixed for everybody. Unfortunately, our system is quite rigid and fixed. But, you know, you talked about that you went and did your master's, and so it's evidence. Like, a lot of people will come out of school and think they're stupid and think they're no good, and their self-worth is really low because they didn't fit into a system. And yet when they fit into the system that really does suit them, you know, like you and your writing and you've proven that, you know, you can excel, you can do your masters, and you can come out, you know, a genius. And you won't agree with me, but, you know, a genius in that field. And yet, if you hadn't have done that, you probably still would be feeling that, you know, I'm not smart, I'm not good, I'm worthless. You know what? I think that not everyone gets that opportunity like you got to have that trigger to push you into another direction to excel.
No, so obviously that internal drive was in there, because I am quite an ambitious and competitive person with myself, not with anyone else. I'm the sort of guy that would run a marathon on my own and not do it in a crowd. I prefer to just. So it was. You're right. Through school, you are, and I realise there's limited resources, so you can't have every student, unfortunately, just doing the things that suit them. But yeah, it's certainly what didn't suit my way of learning. I'm not a classroom authority sort of drilling it in you type person. I have to sort of go away and do it myself and have things to aim for, and so it did take a while. I was lucky with my masters that I was never needed to be in class or anything. I just got to do it like I was just writing a normal book at home on my own. So so it did show me, and now that I've got a 4-year-old boy myself, you know, he'll be shown that throughout his life from me, certainly, that he okay, you might be struggling in this subject, or you might be hating going to school some days and you don't want to do this and this, but it's okay, mate. You don't have to. I saw some of the stresses that some of my school friends were put under once we got the VCE, just stressing about getting certain results. And fair enough, I know if you want to be a doctor or whatever, you need certain marks, and that's understandable. But it was just in general, there was some of them that was so worked up, and it was just such an anxiety thing for them when it should have been sort of a fun process of getting to that end of your schooling. And I was probably looking at that thinking, geez, I'm a long way off this if I'm not really not as worked up as you, and I'm a fair way off. But now, because I was able to see that there are other ways to learn, and we're very lucky today that we can go and do all these online courses and things that we couldn't do when I was leaving school, really. So it's been amazing in showing me that there are other paths that you can get there. I mean, I was late 20s when I started that writing process. So, I'm only just really feeling supremely confident in where I'm at and what I'm doing. And I'm just turned 40. So it comes at random times. Yeah, just a case of getting, as you say regularly, get off the bench. It's just a case of just getting off and just starting that process. You don't have to actually know where it's going to take you. I mean, I haven't planned to have all these books finished in this short time. It's just happened as a flow-on effect of what I'm doing, and I got into a bit like my master's. I got into a PhD program at Federation Uni in Ballarat, again, just through saying, look, this is what I'm doing. And when I remember completing my master's, and the people that got their PhDs got up before me, and I looked at them and thought, geez, I'm a long way off. That's something I'll never do. But within a couple of years, I was able to approach a uni and say, this is my idea, and I got a 3-year scholarship to do a PhD. So it just come out of, they saw what I could do. They probably had more faith in me than I did at the time. But and now, I'm a doctor in my field without, again, that was never planned. It's just happened from me getting off the bench and actually having a crack, and having a great support network too, which helps if your family and that and your friends, and if they're able to sort of see what you're doing and maybe see that you're struggling a bit financially, but you are really having a crack. You're not just sleeping in all day and hitting the pubs, and you're actually you're trying, and eventually you'd like to think if you try, something's going to open up for you.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that you're talking, though, really about stepping into your genius zone. And you, like you say, your master's and your PhD, and you just, all the books just flow out of you, all the doors open, the publishers on your side, everything. I think that it's very hard to find your genius zone. Because you shouldn't be doing writing, you shouldn't be doing art, you shouldn't be doing music. There's a lot of sort of negativity around those kind of areas. Just get a job, and settle down and rah rah rah. But if you got the support around you and the courage, I guess, and that intense drive, like when I'm sitting in my genius zone and sitting in there, I'm so immersed in it, that nothing can stop me, and I'm really achieving, I'm really succeeding. So I just wish more people could get into that zone, because even though want to talk about your mental health struggles soon, but even with that as a challenge, if you weren't doing that, the stuff that you truly love, it would be 10 times more challenging to to battle that. But so I'll go on. Were you going to say something?
No, that's fine, you go. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that, you were saying before that, all the doors open for you, and whenever you've asked somebody for information, people are more than willing to help. And so that means that you've sort of got yourself involved with so many of the absolute legends of AFL, and other sports as well. But you have become, and I see you there, you've become quite an identity in the footy arena. Like you're always posting pictures of you with some superstar or some past footy hero, and all that kind of stuff. It's like you've got this golden backstage pass, which is, I think, is wonderful. and that's evidence in itself that all of these legends, see you as a legend, because they wouldn't just be, hanging there with you if they didn't see something great in you that you clearly can't see, But do you ever get amongst these legends, and past and present, and look around and think, oh my God, there are so many books here?
Yeah, I do. There's not a day or not an event or not a moment where I'm not trying to find an angle to a story, and that you know, it can be standing amongst all the greats at a function, or it can be just sitting in my cafe up here and I'm reading the newspaper. And most people go to a cafe and just read the paper as a bit of a time killer and a bit of an update on what's happening. But I'm actually studying it for, where is there a line in here that, oh, hang on, this is going to present a whole new story for me. Like, I'm really, there's a point to what I'm doing, even though it looks like I'm just killing time each morning, having coffee and not doing much while everyone's heading off to work. But there's a real point behind it. So it's always, and that's, yeah, my publisher probably gets sick of me throwing ideas at him, but there are so many that I do want to do. And I've got smarter at realising some need to be more marketable to get to publishing stage than just the fact that you like the story. So you've got to be more conscious of that. That's something you learn as you go along. But yeah, it's a constant. If I didn't love what I was doing, it could be very draining and quite a bit like a sports coach today, you know, where it's probably a 24/7 job. They're probably at home with the wife and kids, and they're still thinking purely about the footy team, and they probably don't get to switch off at all. And I certainly don't get to switch off. And for the most part, that's a good thing. At times, you'd like to be able to just go and hang out at the pub with your mates or do something like that. But it's time that I feel like I'm wasting, that I could be processing something else. So it can be pretty draining in that sense. But as I said, it's so addictive what I'm doing that I just want to keep doing it, and I don't want to waste. I mean, you can come around and give my house a clean if you like, Karen, because I don't really get around to the house chores too much. As you said, once you're in your seat and you're in the zone for the day, you suddenly look up and it's dinner time and you think, heck, I haven't wiped the floor, I haven't done this or that, and we'll do it tomorrow. So suddenly there's a build-up of dust and things like that. But where I'm sitting's perfect setting. So there's probably downsides to it, but for the most part, it's all productive, and that's what's keeping me feeling good about myself, which is very important, isn't it? That's the key. You know, I could look at every mate and even all my family. They've all got homes that they've purchased, and they've all got pretty steady jobs and earning so much more than me. But I don't feel less than them, even though probably doesn't look as good in the bank account sense and all that side of things. But I don't feel like I'm wasting my life compared to them, because I know that I'm working as hard as them. It's just it's a different process for me, and it's having more of an outcome than just seeing money come into the bank too. It's about actually wanting to get out of bed each day and feel like you've got a bit of purpose to your life. So that's probably what drives me the most.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that for me too, I'm the same. You know, you're talking about, you're so passionate about it, you can't stop. And you know, I often feel the guilt about work-life balance, you know, whatever the hell that means. And I can't stop either. Once you're in a zone, you know, I can't. And I realized the other day we were talking about what you're passionate about, and I was sort of beating myself up recently, thinking, oh, I don't really have a passion. Like, I used to play guitar, and I don't do that much anymore, and I'm not really into stamp collecting. You know, I don't have a hobby or a passion. And then I realized the other day, after listening to a Jay Shetty podcast, I thought, actually, that's bullshit. I'm living my passion. Like, I am absolutely in it 100%. And that's why I couldn't see it. But and I just love it. But you also talked about, you know, when you're hanging out with all these legends, and you're always thinking, and when you're having a conversation, oh, is there an angle here? Is there an angle there? Now, you're quite an introvert, quite a shy person, and you're not, you know, I know you're a great conversationalist one-on-one. You know, I've had some great conversations with you, but in a group, you're quite shy. Where do you draw that strength from, or draw that, you know, inner something from, to really get into those conversations and find the courage or the extrovert you to bring to those conversations?
Yeah, it is a funny one. I mean, you and me, opposites attract, I guess, aren't we? Because you can be the center of attention and really captivate an audience in that sense, and probably not feel too self-conscious about it. And you know, from the first time I heard you speak, you blew me away in that sense, because you're able to do what I knew I wasn't. That's just not in my makeup to do. But you know, you can see why so many people are attracted to you because of how infectious you are and how you go about it. So I'm always in awe of anything you're doing, because I think, Christ, I'd be hiding under the couch when you're doing that. But it's funny, yeah. Even with family, I can't. Everyone's got to sort of, what did you say? Because I speak quietly and I don't really. If there's people talking, you won't hear me speak. I'll just be sitting in the corner reading or listening, but not really engaging as much as I should, just because I'm quite uncomfortable with talking in those settings with whoever it is. But this just come from, again, just it's sudden. I didn't realise it was happening, but excuse me. But the I started to do interviews, and they were quite daunting for me to approach someone out of the blue and turn up at their house and start putting questions to them. And you could only learn mistakes from your mistakes by making them in those. You couldn't go to school and learn how to be an interviewer. I don't think you needed to go and do it. And again, soon, once I realised that I felt good about doing it, and I came away from those interviews feeling like, oh wow, I've got something really important here. I've got their memories on tape, and they've trusted me to put this in the story. And it just started to become more of a comfortable thing. And before long, you are starting to gain different skills and confidence that you didn't realise you had. So now I crave that, and I love. I can sit down with, yeah, you're right, some of the biggest names in sport and not feel anxious. Whereas if you said, come to the pub and talk with my mates for an hour, I'd probably find a reason not to go. And even though it'd be a more relaxed environment and they'd all be great people, it would just be a case of I'd be so anxious about having to have people see me as the centre of attention for a chat. Whereas, yeah, I can go and sit with Ron Barassi for 4 hours and not be anxious at all, So it's funny when you find what you do. People would be surprised that I am able to do that, probably because I don't like. It's not that I don't like. I just get the anxiety in the stomach, and that feeling of feeling quite sick, having to be the centre of attention, and you sort of shy away from it. But once you commit to a project and you commit to interviewing someone, you've got to follow through with it as well. So there's a responsibility to do that. So you're suddenly forcing yourself to step out of your comfort zone a bit, and that's proved really beneficial for me. Even just talking on a podcast like this, I couldn't have done this 5 years ago. Whereas now, there's no drama. So it's all an all-encompassing thing. Once certain things start to fall into place and you realise where your passions are, it's amazing what you'll do.
Mm. Well, there's one thing in that I won't be taking you down the pub to hang out with my mates, because that's not something that I like to do. So I'm as bad as you. I'd rather sit at home twaddling on my computer than be down the pub with anybody. So that's good. I'd rather be hanging at your house, Dan, and having a one-on-one.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. We can both sit on our laptops and not talk, and we'll just do our work. Yeah, perfect. Great night in.
That actually sounds like my house anyway. So I love it. Well, that's off the card, so don't worry about that. So we'll just catch up quietly. That's fine. But when you like when you're talking about, you have to commit, like you have to get over the anxiety once you decide. So how do you choose the next book to write? That's the first thing, because as we said, there's, you look around, there's hundreds. You're just like, I've got hundreds of projects. So how do you actually choose, okay, this is the next one? And then once you've decided that, how do you then build up the courage? Like, how do you sort of get yourself prepared to be confident enough, I guess, to go to that person and then say, hi, I'm Dan, here's my next book. Would you be interested? Like, or do they just think, wow, Dan wants to write about me, I'm so bloody honoured? I bet they do, actually.
No, I don't think so. But no, a lot of it comes from just heroes or teams or eras that I was passionate about growing up. Like I'm an Essendon supporter, but I've written about Hawthorn and North Melbourne and Carlton, and because I was just obsessed with all things sport history. So so it is a thing of, well, I've approached Dick Reynolds' family. I've done Dick's book. Okay, well, I'm fascinated in Peter Hudson from Hawthorn, another legend of the game, and so I'm just going to try and find out whether he'd be interested. Because I'm someone who prefers to write the book with the family's help or with the subject's help. So and input to really bring it to life. So um, I built up enough confidence after Reynolds that I was able to. And you start to make a few contacts, and suddenly you're getting contacts for people that you would never have had. So my little red book is pretty handy. It gives a pretty good insight into. You get a few phone numbers there for people in the game, and that's come through building up a trust with clubs and with other past players and people like that. So I was able to contact Peter Hudson that way, and that started the journey with him. He'd never told his story in full, and he felt comfortable enough around me. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but and it's the same with. I did a book on Carlton, on a team from the 70s and 80s that had a lot of success, and that just came out of a conversation with their former coach David Parkin, and I just asked. Now he just started talking about that team and said a few things about it. So I went away from that chat with him and looked up a few stats and looked up a few names and thought, gee, he's got something here. This story does need to be told. So that was one I would never have thought of, and that became my most popular book, Larrikins and Legends. So it was, and again, once you start to interview a few people from that team, they talk, and suddenly they're almost expecting your call, and you start to infiltrate yourself into their team and their club. And it's amazing when they see that you're really eager to tell their story, whether it's a subject on his own or whether it's a team. The support that they give you is fantastic, and that's sort of been what I've experienced most of the way through. So each story's sort of flown on from the last one, So I haven't, I haven't sort of sat down. I've certainly sat down and studied timelines and teams and names and tried to think of things, but sometimes it's just comes out of the blue while I'm researching something, and you go, oh, there's a little offshoot to this story that maybe I should pursue that while I'm doing this story. I'll just start to look into it and see where it goes. And again, sometimes I start a story and it ends different to how I'd thought it would, but it's just having that initial idea I find's that little spark of genius or that flash of light that comes into your mind where something hits you and you just go, oh, wow, we've got to pursue this. A bit like an entrepreneur, I guess, who suddenly comes up with an idea for something that no one else has thought of, or an angle that no one else has thought of. And I'm probably not a great person to study if you want to work out a structured path to how to do things. It's very much what inspires me at the time, but somehow it works. So it's hard to sort of say that this is how I come about a story, because sometimes it does come from just a simple conversation with someone else, and it's amazing where it takes me. But that's why I'm always on the lookout or watching documentaries or whatever, just to get a different angle that might spark me in a different direction.
Yeah, and I
That
think
answer that question.
It did, but I think we keep coming back to when you're in your genius zone. And I know you're not calling it a genius zone. I certainly am, but when you're in that that space, there's no hardship in there. There's no struggle. You're not actually trying to force things to happen. It all just sort of unfolds and unpacks in a beautiful way. And I think it just sort of flows as it should, and the next thing comes. I absolutely love what you're doing. I think you just don't see it, but it's incredible. And all these people, you said a magical word before, that all these people trust you. And they're not just trusting you to write a story; they're trusting you to write their lives. To really. There are people out there who can't wait to get the sensational angle so that they can slag the hell out of someone, and just so that they get a good story. But you are not like that. You bring out all the highlights, you bring out the celebration, and you bring out even the sensitive stuff. You do it with such sensitivity, and such care that you even make the challenges really gentle and beautiful. And the fact that you've said it, and it's true that they trust you with their lives, that is, Dan, that's something that's phenomenal. And a lot of people never get to achieve that, to that level that people trust them so deeply. So I think that's, credit to you for being like that and for achieving that.
Yeah, thanks. Again, it's not something you consciously know that you're doing, but yeah, my latest book was on Peter Crimmins, a Hawthorn captain who died of cancer at 28, and his widow Gwen is. I approached her about doing Peter's story, and they've got two young boys, Ben and Sam, and it's still died in 1976, and still a very sensitive subject for everyone close to him, 40 or 50 years later. So, if she hadn't have trusted me and to do it the right way and really open herself up to feeling all those feelings again pretty rawly, and it was pretty affecting for her to go through the process again, but she trusted me to do the story, and I was, I'll always be appreciative of that, because it showed me that once you're able to trust each other, because she had to trust me and I had to trust her, and we had to really, you butt heads a few times as well, because there was some pretty challenging stuff to put on the page, but I was really proud of how it come together. And if I had have tried to write that without having her involvement and her trust in me, it wouldn't have been anywhere near as passionate or profound a story as what I was able to achieve. So again, if I had have maybe started my book writing with that book, it might not have. I needed to acquire the skills that I got and the confidence in myself, and so it's all sort of timing of certain things has happened. How it's meant to, and I guess that's through me knocking on doors and everything as well. But comes with experience and comes with confidence in yourself and belief that you can actually get off the bench and make an impact.
Yeah. And it's a step by step, isn't it? It's building that confidence just bit by bit. And it's, things, if you're in your flow, things just unfold as they should. And I can't tell you how many podcasts people I've interviewed on this podcast that, they look back over their timeline and you can just see that everything has happened at that time, just to build to where they are now. And there'll be so much more coming into the future that was built on this particular moment. But I love it. And you've also co-written with past Olympian and now parliamentarian Nova Peris, who is a very good friend of yours. And I see you two, you two have a lovely friendship, and you do a lot together. I think it's wonderful. But how did that friendship start? And what was it about her that made you want to collaborate with her and start writing that story for her?
Yeah, again, I was just fascinated from afar, this sportswoman who did so well, and from an Aboriginal background where it's always more challenging coming from the pathway that they have to go through to get to where they are, which shouldn't be the case, but it is, unfortunately, and hopefully it's not forever, but it has been for a long time. And so for her to achieve what she did in sport alone was pretty remarkable. But then she gets into politics and breaks more glass ceilings, and there's many ceilings she's broken. There's a lot of glass on the ground because of Nova. I think she's smashed a few things over the years. Pretty amazing. And I saw what she was going through a fair bit, some controversial stuff in politics, and I was watching it from afar and I thought, gee, you're coping with this pretty well. It must be pretty demanding. And so I just contacted her out of the blue. It's amazing with social media. Sometimes you can get in touch with people that you wouldn't have been able to do 15 years ago. So, and we met up. I said, what do you think about doing a book on your life? And we met up, and her husband, Scott's very similar to me, similar sort of background and passions and things like that. So we just I guess we clicked pretty early. Again, she saw that I was genuine about what I wasn't there just to get a front page headline about her or anything. So just grew from there, and we started to realise that we had more things in common, and we were on the same page, I think, with where we're at in our lives. So it just grew from there. And then Ernie, my son, came along, and she loves him, and he saw her on Play School a couple of years ago, and he's like, oh, you know, it was a pretty cool moment for him to think that he can go and see her. But no, we've been great. We've done one book together. There was just an overview of her speeches in Parliament, so we put them together in a little book, and we have been talking for a long time now about doing the full autobiography, but life keeps getting in the way, but it is still planned. But yeah, I've been very lucky. They've been very supportive of me through dark times, and you know, I try to be there for them when I can as well. And yeah, we were going to do a podcast and a few things ourselves, but then the damn virus came along, and Nova and Scott packed up and went back up to Darwin, where it was a lot freer and safer up there. So life got in the way of a few things we were going to do, but we are still hoping to get that book done. So again, that just come from me having the proactive approach of approaching and just saying, look, this is what I'd like to do, and you can say no, but there was never any sort of thought of that. So yeah, it's amazing what friendships can come from. That's probably the best thing that's come out of all my writing, is some of the friendships I've made with people that, yeah, you're right, I did grow up fascinated by, and you start to see that most of them are pretty genuine, you know, but yeah, you do build some pretty cool friendships out of that endure. As you know, it becomes almost the best thing about what we do.
Yeah. 100%. Well, I've got most of my really great friends are people that I've met through speaking, and you know, and from a lot of this stuff, but also podcasts too. I do exactly what you said. I just reach out to people that, you know, and I'm on this roll to get 100 rejections, and I've hardly had any. So, but you know, it's amazing that you can reach out to people, and you know, they're people are just people. And I think this is one thing, you know, we can be quite intimidated by somebody who's got a name or somebody who's got, you know, big reputation. And at the end of the day, they're just people like everybody else. And, you know, and you reach out to them and you get, you know, I'm great friends now with, you know, so many people. We stay in touch, and it's just fantastic. Anyway, I love it. And you also did the story about Lydia Lassler, you know, the Winter Olympics gold medalist as well. So that book's called Champions. And was it the same? You just reached out to her and
Yeah, she'd written the book a few years ago, and she wanted to update it. So she approached our publisher, and you know, and so he had to think of someone that was suitable to the story. And I was fortunate that he picked me. He could have picked someone far more experienced. It was one of my earlier books that I did. So you know, that was a real important thing for me to know that he had the faith in me to do that. So I worked with Lydia. She's fantastic, amazing. Talk about people that are inspirational, and what she's been through, some major injuries. She changed careers, and you know, had to work as a mother, and a bit like Nova, had to sacrifice a lot as a mother to get to where she got to, and achieved just amazing. Oh, sorry about that. I'll just turn that down. Yeah, so she just achieved amazing things through, yeah, just one of the most inspirational people you can meet. So it was a real privilege to work with her and update her book and tell her story. And yeah, it's those sort of projects when you get to sit down with these people that have just achieved the highest they can achieve in their sport or their chosen field. I mean, it's a real privilege to sit there and learn about them and how they went about it. And it was yeah, it's something I'm really proud of that I was able to work with her, and hopefully there's more. As you say, I've done mostly on footy so far, but yeah, I'm hoping to branch out to other sports as we go along. Just probably take on too many projects at once, then you think, oh, I haven't got time to start another one. But hopefully at some point I can branch out a bit more.
I love it. I think when you said there about that, you know, the publisher reached out to you and chose you, and yet there were so many more experienced people. I think, you know, that's a really key point you've hit on, is that some people think that because they've been doing it a long time, they're the better person for it, you know, and that type of thing. And often if we've just started, we start to feel imposter syndrome. You know, I'm not as good as them, and I don't bring the same, and I don't have all the experience. But there's the whole point about you, Dan, is that we talked about it a minute ago, the trust and the care and the concern that you bring, the sensitivity that you bring. So if I was Lydia, or the publisher, do I want someone who, has penned many things and, can, grammatically put it all together, or do I want someone who's going to bring really, pure heart to it? I want you. I want you to tell my story, because you care and you've got that sensitivity. So I think that that's probably something that you underestimate in yourself. That is such a it's so valuable. You can't even put a price on that.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. You don't realise it yourself when you're in that and you're doing it. You just go ahead and do it. But yeah, when you reflect back, you think, okay, well, yeah, he obviously saw something in me, and she had to then agree to that as well. So they obviously saw something in me that was genuine. That's what I try to be. Everything I write, all the key people I interview, I send it back to them as I'm going along. They probably get sick of me sending them updates of chapters and things, but it's so they can be across the fact that I've written all this, and you get the chance to say, mate, you can't have that in, and no one really has told me to take stuff out. They might refine a word here or there, but they don't. They never. I very rarely have someone say you can't have that in there. So they think the fact that I am quite open with them, and they're not just seeing it in print for the first time and thinking, "Gee, how dare you quote me on this when that was off the record or this or that." So I'm very conscious of doing that. I don't know if other writers do that or not, but it's certainly something that I try and do, just to make sure that everyone's coming along with me on the story, and they all get their chance to have their say, and make sure that I'm telling it the right way, because I'm generally telling it about people that I didn't live through their era. So you've got to put yourself back in that era to understand it, and that's why you need all the voices in there. And so it's something that develops. I think it's not just And then in terms of, you said the imposter syndrome, and for quite a while I felt inferior seeing my book on the shelves with other people whose books clearly must have been better than mine. That was just the theory. And it wasn't until, I reckon, the last couple of books when I've suddenly felt, no, I deserve to be on this shelf as much as you, because I know what I'm doing is my heart and soul out there, and I'm dedicating the time, and I'm making the effort to go and track down as many people as I can to bring this story to life. And so it's certainly the first few books, you saw your books on the shelf and it was exciting, but you thought, oh dear, maybe I should put that behind someone else's, because his should be more prominent than mine. But now you get to a point when you suddenly think, no, hang on, mine deserves to be there as much as yours.
It does. And 12 books in 6 years. I mean, Jesus, that's bloody dedication, I tell you. But now, Dan, tell us like your mental health challenges, because I think that this is a really critical point to this, because not only have you written the 12 books in 6 years, and not only have you sort of reached out and you're doing things really beautifully and from your heart, and you're making a massive impact and telling beautiful stories, but you have to push through mental health challenges. You talked about earlier, when you come out of school, when you first came out of school, it was quite a battle for you. And I remember first meeting you in 2018 at the Hero Roundtable, and you spoke about, dealing with depression, anxiety, having a diagnosis of Asperger's, and, and how the writing and your family has supported you on that journey and kept you floating, and kept you up. What was it that, that sort of, when you come out of school and the mental health really hit you, what happened there that caused that to head in?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think you reach your teenage years, and your body's changing and relationships are changing, and it's all about having the right image to impress the right people, and you're trying to fit into that, and then you're getting towards the end of school, and you're thinking, heck, I'm going to be out in the real world soon, and I don't even feel like I'm capable of tying up my own shoes. So you start to think of, I guess you got a lot that you're weighing up, and some people can be really clear at that age what they want to do and the paths they want to take to get there, whereas others don't. And I had a lot of internal anxiety throughout my early life, really, and always felt, I had issues with my body and with my thinking and um, with my emotions, and there's a lot of things that you couldn't explain, but you'd sort of see your mates, and they didn't seem to be as uncomfortable in the same settings as you were. They might have been, and they hit it better than me, but I don't think they were. And you just, you're feeling different in the sense that I have real issues with clothing and things like that, which I'll get into shortly. But and just little things like that, where you're seeing someone getting around in a suit, and the thought of that makes you actually have a panic attack, and little things like that. You think, what's going on here? What the hell is wrong with me? And it is, and then you're not overly excelling at school, so you're thinking, gee, there's something clearly not right with me, So you do start to self-doubt yourself a lot. I was bullied a little bit in high school just by a couple of people, which was quite difficult as well. But for the most part, it was just a lot of internal stuff that was happening in my head that was making me feel not insane, but just worked up a lot, and really feeling down on yourself for the fact that you were feeling a lot different to other people. And then so I did start to express that in about year 11. It come out through anger, and it come out through sadness, and it come out through anxiety, and it really started to bubble up. And it had been there for a while, I think, but I'd always masked it in different ways. But there just gets a point when it's just tiring masking it, and you just start to probably express it worse than you should, and you suddenly start to feel a bit out of control in yourself. And it's a really strange feeling when you can't express why that's happening. So so it's a bit of a flow-on effect from there. And I had, relationships I couldn't maintain, and that gets you down when you lose a relationship. So there's a lot of things building up by VCE time, and then once it came out that, and we started to get some medical help and realised that, you're in this depression banner, you're under this, and it start to go, okay, but what does that mean? And no one really properly explains to you what that means, and you don't know either. So you don't really get over it. Certainly got help, but you didn't get proactive help in the sense that you come away thinking, okay, I'm on top of this now, and I can get through this, and then we'll be fine. It just continued throughout life, and into adulthood. And it wasn't until in my late 20s, pretty much around the time I started writing that book, actually, the first one, is that we went and saw another specialist and realised that I had Asperger's syndrome, which suddenly instantly explained a lot of things that had felt wrong. You do struggle with textures, and you struggle with temperature. I'm shocking in the heat. You struggle with noise. Anything too loud can be really intense, whereas it might be annoying for someone, but it becomes a real intensity for me. Hence why I love just being in my own home and just doing my own thing from here. Little things that you put up with because you think everyone's going through the same thing, but then you realise that your intensity around this is worse, so it started to explain a lot of reasons why I was struggling at certain points. So I think that helped me. I wish you could have been diagnosed at 5 years old, but no one probably knew what it was back then. So I'm not getting this diagnosis until 26, 28. And it was almost a bit of a deep breath to go, oh, thank God you've explained things that have been happening to me that no one else has been able to understand. And within 5 minutes of meeting with you, you've been able to say, oh, I can see you've got this. You must deal with this. So it was a real good moment in that sense. So I was at least able to start to understand it. But yeah, throughout your school years, you don't really, particularly through my era, hopefully it's different now for kids coming through, but for yours and my era, we weren't able to talk about those sort of things, were we?
Yeah, no, not at all. And I think it's interesting too with Asperger's, you get away with it a lot more as a little kid too, because all the little kids are doing their quirky little things, that sort of stuff. And if a 7-year-old boy loves to kick a footy and no one else does, nobody really questions it. It's kind of like, yeah, go play your footy. But then when you get into teenage years, and that's when you're saying you started to express your anger and that sort of stuff. It is that peer pressure that you have to be doing what everyone else is doing and feeling what everyone else is doing, and being included in everything else. And that's when the tension really happens for a lot of, and particularly boys. It's a terrible, teenage years are a terrible age for boys with Asperger's committing suicide, too, because they've suddenly been okay, or fitted into a group, and then they're suddenly noticing there's massive big gaps, and without that diagnosis, it's, well, what's wrong with me? Why am I feeling like this? And I love that you're saying, with that, some people say, yes, we should get diagnosed. Some people say when we shouldn't, because it's better not to know, and all this. There's all sort of varied thoughts on it. But I think that exactly what you're saying, when you were diagnosed, everything fell into place. You understood, oh, hang on, it's okay for me not to like a suit because that's part of my sensory stuff, and it's okay for me to get, upset with noise because that fits into what difficulties I would have sensory wise. And, I think it's fortunate that you did get that diagnosis, because otherwise you'd still be thinking, what's wrong with me?
Yeah, exactly. And part of that relief was, Mum was in the room with me when I got that diagnosis, and it was just I just broke down crying, because it was just the relief of, now Mum and Dad know that I wasn't just a complete a-hole. They know that there was more to it than that, and that I wish for them and for my 3 siblings that they could have known that in the teen years as well, because it would have made their life a lot easier, because it's been hell for all of them. And that's the flow-on effect of anyone who's dealing with any of that stuff, is your family and friends probably cop it more than anyone, because you probably feel you can express in front of the people who really love you and are around you. But so part of that relief was, now the family can know that it's, Mum and Dad haven't done anything wrong, or my siblings, I didn't hate them, I just couldn't be around them as much as I probably should have been, and things like that. So it was a relief in that sense, and that came about because I was dating a girl whose daughter had Asperger's, and I didn't even know it existed. So I was seeing her doing things that I was doing that was driving me nuts, but I was thinking, hang on, I actually go through the same thing. So when we split up, that's when I said, I think we better go and ask about this, because she was doing so many things. And one of the things, and it's actually worked in it's part of the key to why I'm able to do what I do, really, is that part of having like an autistic or an Aspergery thing is that you're very intensely passionate about certain things, and everything else doesn't really matter to you. So for this young girl, she was obsessed with marbles, and if every night they had to be counted and laid out and perfect, and if you picked one up and threw it away, you've lost her for the night. She'll have an absolute meltdown. And that was me with things growing up relating to sport and history. Mum and Dad couldn't bend a newspaper for 15, 20 years, because that was part of my obsession, was I need to keep this scrap of paper because it's got a little story in it on a footy history thing or something. And if they bent the paper, you'd lost me for the day. There were little things that were really intense, but that passion for that focus, I'm practically useless when it comes to putting a fence up or basically anything, actually, Karen. I can mow the lawn, but if you need me to do anything else, you better ring my brother or my dad or someone, because I am useless. But that's because I think all my focus is just all the intensity of my inner focus is on what I do good, which is the writing and the researching and all that. And I think so in that sense, there was another part of the relief was, well, hang on, there's actually positives to this. If we channel it, if maybe I was passionate about it, playing guitar or something, we'll channel it that way, and you're going to get a kid or an adult who's so focused on doing that, they're going to achieve awesome things. But you're right, through school, you can't be probably channeled as much as you'd like, because you do have to fit into a system a bit. And so that's when you do start to feel a bit odd, when you get a bit older and you can question yourself a bit and say, well, hang on, why am I not fitting in? And this is really hard. And you do express it in the wrong way sometimes, but it's because you don't fit into a box. You're that circle that just needs to learn it a different way. But once you work out what that way is or what that subject is, you're unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, I love it, and I'm glad you've got the diagnosis because it makes your life. Well, I know that there's struggles with it, but I used to do a lot of work with autism and people with autism, and I just, and there's some part of me that says really strongly believes that God, if we all had it, the world would be it'd be black and white. Just get the bloody thing done. Just get on with it. You sit there, I'll sit here, and we don't have to talk. We'll just get the damn thing done.
Yeah, that's right.
The world would click a lot easier than all this,
wouldn't it?
bullshit about the weather's nice and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, there's no small talk. It's just let's just make it happen. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, and that's what I appreciate about it. I think that's such a important thing. I just love it, and I love that your family have supported you with your writing. And I love that your writing has helped, like the fact that you now know where you sit, you now know where your zone is, you know what's important to you, and you can just flourish in that. Is just, I think that's just beautiful. And it doesn't mean there's no more struggles. That doesn't mean that, because you're always going to be faced with situations that cause anxiety and and sensory things that are going to cause you stress. But the fact that that you know what's going to trigger you, you can avoid it where possible. And two, if you can't avoid it, you can at least say, okay, I know why I'm feeling this, and this is my strategy to remove myself or to reduce that impact. So at least you've got that, to work with. But
yeah, for sure.
I think you're incredible. Well, I've always loved you. I've loved you since the minute I've met you. You just you're just beautiful. And I was in Leongatha last week. While you're talking, I was looking at you thinking, oh, damn it, why didn't I call in and see Dan? I had an hour to kill. I should have already done that, but never mind. We'll do it again. But
the local coffee shop knows Ernie and our dog Dennis. He knows us three are a bit of the staple of the. Ernie gets a bit put out if someone dares sit in our seat or something like that. So we will always have a seat there for you. If you and Nikki are ever in town, make sure you let me know next time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I wonder if Ernie knows that he would never get starstruck with his dad, but I wonder one day if one day he will say, "Oh my God, I never knew what my dad did. He's a bloody legend."
Yeah, I mean, at the moment he's at that age where it's why you're still at the desk. Why aren't you out here? It's so many times he says, "Dad, take your glasses off," because he knows if the glasses are on, I'm busy working, and so he's pretty smart in that sense. But it is one thing, sometimes it can be difficult when you're co-parenting and don't always see eye to eye, so it can be a bit of a challenge. But that is why I do try to get into a lot of memorable things that I do, whether it's interviewing someone and he comes along or some sort of special event, just so when he is older, he can. I know right now he doesn't appreciate it, but he might one day just sort of go, "Oh, wow, we got to do some cool things, Dad," and that's one of the privileges I'm in. I can take into some certain things that, other kids at his age might not get to do. And we make sure there's lots of photos in the house and really, really remind him when he is older, particularly if there are more challenges in the parenting side of things, that I'm able to, one day he'll be able to say, "Oh, Dad did make the effort," and that's the important thing. And he's starting to get to that age where it's, "What book are you working on, Dad?" and things like that. So, and certain names he remembers now that, Peter Hudson's book will be out at the start of next year. And, so he's still writing Peter's book. He's still, and he's met Peter, and so little things like that really complement what I'm doing, and will be special with him one day. It'd be cool if he's able to go to the school library. So I do see things in him that I had as a kid. So I don't know whether he'll end up with the same things I've got or not, but he does have certain things like that. And so it will be cool if when he is at school, if he's able to go to the school library and see Dad's book there. It might be a proud moment for him, hopefully, and just to show him as well that he can do different things to other people if you want to have a crack.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Well, you're a bloody good role model in that sense. And I think even though that he's only 4, I think he will remember stuff. I mean, my dad was good mates with Barry Round, and he used to be at our house, and I still remember that, from when I was a kid. And and I
Awesome.
remember all the footballers. Dad used to play. He played mostly for Warragul. He played for Richmond for a bit, and but all the Warragul footballers, I remember them coming around to our house most Saturday nights after the game, and I still remember all that sort of stuff. And so I think I think he'll still remember. He'll wake up one day and go, "Wow, leave your glasses on, Dad."
I hope so, because I don't get much work done.
I love it. This has been fantastic. I've loved this. Now I'm going to ask you about the get off the bench question that I ask everyone. So there's going to be many people out there battling with mental health issues because it's growing and it's getting more and more and more, and very often this causes them to step back and leave their dreams on the table or off the table, whatever the case may be. We're not going to do my dreams. So you're proof that despite any of these challenges, you can still achieve your dream, and you can still become extraordinarily successful at it. What advice would you give to anybody in this situation who feels like maybe their chance will never come, and maybe even that it breaks their heart?
Yeah, well, first thing, yeah, whatever it is you're interested in, doesn't matter what it is, riding, building fences, things I can't do, any of those sort of things. Find out, just go and ask. You might have no money in the bank, you might have, no girlfriend, you're struggling to pay your rent, but just go and start asking people who in that area where you worked or where you're keen to work, or just keen to follow a passion. Just approach someone and ask them. I didn't know what questions to ask. I turned up to that master's degree interview. I didn't know anything about what I was supposed to even be talking about. I just said, "Oh, this is what I'm doing," and I left it in their court to ask the question because I didn't know. But I made the effort to go there and do that, and it changed my life doing something like that. And it's happened so many times where I've just made the call, or a cold call can be quite intimidating. You can email a lot of people now, or you might find someone that is doing something you like, and you see them on Facebook. You just send that first message out, and it just needs that first. If they had have blocked me at the start, you might have been disheartened, and but so the fact that they were open to letting me explore what I wanted to explore, and my family were on board and all that. It just it gave you that little push in the back to get up and start going, and again, you might not know where you're going, but you just know that you want to go somewhere and you need to go somewhere for your own self. So it's just that initial step. You don't have to have all the answers to the questions that you want to ask. You just need to approach and just start. Just find what it is and just start with something simple. Something simple as one email or one phone call, or just going along to an event like the Hero Round Table. You go along and suddenly someone sees you and sees what you do, and they're like, "Oh wow, she's an interesting person. I'll go and talk to her after this, or I'll get her email." Or it doesn't take much, does it, just to start. And I have some shocking days mental health wise, some shockers, but I know in myself that I'm driven now by doing this, not for any other reason than I'm just so engrossed in what I'm doing, and it's giving me really good feeling inside. I'm happy. I'm eager to get out of bed, which we don't all. A lot of people have Monday-itis and things like that. There's none of that for me, and I doubt there is for you either, because you want to hurry up and get to sleep so I can wake up and start doing it again. It's a bit like that. And once people feel that way, no matter how bad their situation is, once you feel that way and have that little bit of inner purpose, it can take you anywhere, or as far as you want to pursue it after that. But it's just getting that initial seed planted, isn't it?
I reckon it is too. I reckon it's that, just get off the bench, just put one foot, your best foot forward, and just go for it. And because, like you say, it one thing leads to the next, and it's just that first step. That first thing is so damn hard, but once you're over that first hurdle, everything unfolds. Everything really does. And so, perfect advice. And I think the whole thing about getting out of bed, just get up and give something a go. Just move forward in the right direction, because otherwise we move backwards, and it's so bloody hard. But
every school in Australia should have you there at some point, Karen, just to give that message. Because again, if I had that in school, and that's why you do look up to your sport heroes or your music heroes or whatever it is, because you need that in school, I think, more. Seeing someone just showing you that, you can do it, because you have a million doubts going through school years and even through adult years. You have a million doubts. But if you had someone to mentor you in that sense through school, and again, resources are limited, I know, but gee, wouldn't it be great if every student could get access to someone like you with your message once a week, once a month, whatever it is, it would change. You'd change at least one person's life, but I reckon you'd change half the class, because of people are seeing, gee, that's a simple message, but, you come away feeling good about it, and you just start to feel a bit more positive.
Yeah. 100%. And some people do, and I have had people say to me, but you're amazing, you've got something, but I haven't, it's not amazing. It's just, it's the fact that, in all of these great things that I'm doing, and it's taken me a long time to say that they're great, but it's, I'm not, haven't been skilled or been an expert in anything. It's just been the fact that I've had the guts to put one foot in front of the other, and that is the only reason that I've achieved what I've had. It's the courage to put one foot in front of the other. And every single person on this planet can find that courage, it's just has got that inside them, that ability to take that one courageous step at a time. And you don't have to be brilliant. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a PhD like Dr. Dan here. You don't have to. You don't have to have any of that stuff. You just have to just back yourself, and that's the message I like to get out. Is just back yourself, and even if you don't get the outcome that you were hoping for, you'll still get an outcome that you can learn from. And that can push you into another direction.
Sorry again.
Right?
Yeah, you're right, and that's spot on. Yeah, even I talk about I was lucky to get straight in with the publisher, and it worked well for me. But I approached a uni about doing my PhD, and the professor there, or the lady in the staff that I spoke to, she said, "So tell me about your undergraduate stuff and all this." And I sort of looked a bit dumb and said, "I haven't done any of that. I just got straight into a master's." And she laughed. She actually laughed in my face and said, "There's no way you'll get into a PhD. I don't, And so I could have walked away. Well, I did. I walked away pretty disheartened by it. I thought, oh, well, clearly that's not something that is attainable for me. But then I thought, no, I will. I'll contact someone else. And I contacted someone else. And as I said, I got a 3-year scholarship for the same story, the same subject I was going to approach through that other uni. And I could have given up there and then and not had that. But again, that internal drive to do it yourself. I didn't have anyone else pushing me saying, go and do this. It was just me saying, no, hang on, there's got to be another way around this, because I'm pretty passionate to do it. And I think the story's good. So there are setbacks or little blockages along the way that can dishearten you again, and you might go back to sitting on the bench and not doing anything. But that's where you then just find another way around it. Like I didn't star in school, but I found a way around it where I've now got a PhD, which, I'm sure my school teachers would be shocked by that. Maybe they're not. Maybe they have more faith in me than I did in myself, maybe. But again, so I could have sort of given up there and then and gone back in my hole, but I just said, no, stuff it. I'm going to try someone else. And I'd love to see her today and just show her what I've done. But that does become a thing where you do then push yourself again, because there are times, you're right, where you sit down, you think, oh, I haven't got the strength to get back up and try this again. But again, knock on another door and be amazed. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And it's not, you can't take the first thing that the first person's opinion that comes back at you, because that can knock you right off your perch. And if you believe in something enough, just keep trying, because there will be someone out there who believes in you, and there will be a way to get to do whatever that thing is you want to do. But
Yeah,
Oh,
well, I
Dan.
think we do. I think even as sorry, Karen, just there. I think even as adults, there's still a lot of boxes where you're expected to just fit into the structure of how it works. But um, as you and me have demonstrated, there's ways to go around things to get to a completely different outcome that wasn't part of that structured way forward, But so you just choose a little way around it, and might be amazed by how you actually outdo what they thought you could do and what you thought you could do. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And don't worry about what everyone else expects of you. You just do
Yeah.
it. You stay in your lane and you just do your thing. And it's you'd be surprised what you can do when you're in that zone. Dan, I have loved this chat. I love you. I love your heart. I just love everything about you. You are a legend. You don't see it, but I see it, and I'm so grateful you spent this time. I'm sure people are going to want to find you and start following you if they haven't already heard of you. But where can people find you?
Yeah, I've been lucky. A friend of ours, Matty Langdon, put together a website for me, which I think he looks pretty good. Makes me look quite smart. So if you go to daneddybooks.com, you can see all the books I've done and what I've been up to, and you can see the video from the Hero Roundtable chat that I did, which was quite an uncomfortable chat, but you approached me afterwards, so it must have been okay. And then yeah, and all my books are on there, but also my contact details and everything. So daneddybooks.com for if you want to get in touch.
Yep. And also Facebook, Dan Eddy Books, Insta, Dan Eddy Books,
Yep.
and LinkedIn, Dr. Dan Eddy. And yes, I did approach you after that talk because you touched my heart. And I remember coming up and giving you a big cuddle. And I don't know whether you wanted a cuddle or not, but you got one anyway.
It was appreciated. Thank you. Yeah, no, it was it. I remember because I'd met you the night before at the pre-function, and you were your typical loud out there self, and I hadn't said a word all night. And then after I got up and said, I don't cope well with loud noises, you come up and said, "I'm so sorry for being so loud." I said, "No, that's not an issue." But yeah, it was just funny that you were horrified when you heard that.
Oh, I didn't realise. I only knew you were an author.
Yeah. Yes, you can't judge a book by the cover, can you? Because
No.
you don't know.
No, you can't. But I genuinely did. I was concerned because I was quite loud. I was my normal rambunctious self at the at the dinner. But no, I just think you're a shining light, Dan. I just think you're just amazing, and your evidence and your evidence that you can still push through stuff and you still can succeed. And you're just you're a great role model for people who may be hampered by Asperger's or by mental health, and and you're just doing some amazing stuff, and such a great role model for people who may be doubting themselves and maybe thinking that that they can't contribute, because I don't believe that at all. Everyone can contribute, and you're proving that. And I just think you're a bloody legend. You know that.
Oh, I do. Thanks for that. No, and the feelings are mutual. No, we got great respect for what you're doing, and as I said, you should be in schools on the books doing some promotional stuff, some positive stuff there for the kids, because I would have craved that sort of message as a kid myself, and I reckon there'd be millions out there that would. And I've got not little anymore, but nieces and nephews in school, and they'd love to hear those messages too. So it's important that your message is getting out there to as many people as possible.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. I might have to send a book to every single school. I don't think I can afford that, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's the pitfall. Everyone wants freebies when you start bringing books out. And me being the financial brain dead person that I am, you give them away. You think, oh, hang on, that hasn't worked out too well for me. But charge them. Make sure they pay.
Yeah, they can afford it. I love it.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Dan. You've given my confidence a bit of a boost, and I hope I've given yours a lovely little boost this morning. And
Definitely.
So appreciate this. So anyway, next time I'm Lean Gathra, I will call in and say good day.
Very good. We'll see you then.
Okay, thanks, Dan. See ya. Ta-da.